Well, that was the scene on Thursday night following Barack Obama's acceptance speech in Charlotte, bringing the three-day Democratic convention to a close. We'll talk about the media coverage of the president's speech in a minute. But first, something that happened earlier in the week, which most of the media seemed to ignore.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen.
That's Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, the chairman of the Democratic Convention, calling for a third vote to amend their platform, this time to include God and reconfirm Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It didn't seem to get much attention in the mainstream media, Jim. Why not?
Well, it could be because the mainstream media didn't want to make the Democrats look bad. I mean, but by contrast, I think if this had been the Republican convention, if the chairman of the Republican convention somewhere had done those voice votes, which, by the way, it's not even clear to me they got a majority, let alone 2/3. But if it had been a Republican convention, the mainstream media would have hauled out acoustical engineers and sound decibel checks and so on. They would have proven which was bigger and so on. Those two people in the white T-shirts would be household names by now. The New York Times would have them on the front page. They would have on the Today Show telling their story about how atrocious the Republicans are. Instead, it was the Democrats and sweetness and light. ABC News didn't even touch the story. NBC News gave it like 10 seconds.
And I want to say, we talked about this earlier in the week, Jim and I, but I want to say, listen, it was the hottest story on talk radio, both from the right and the left. Every talk radio host asked us about it. So maybe mainstream media didn't take care of it, but radio absolutely went after it like nobody's business.
And so did the social media, which is another defining feature of both conventions, but especially the Democratic convention, was the intense Twitterization of the Democratic convention. I mean, it was just, you could barely get on Twitter. It was so active.
Well, since God has been brought up here, let me inject something. You know, the book of Ecclesiastes says, meaningless, meaningless, all is meaningless. And the whole thing about God, even God got booed. I mean, would God want to be identified with a pro-abortion, pro-same-sex marriage, $16 trillion debt? I don't think so. And then the whole Jerusalem thing, the media never brings this up. Every administration says, oh, yeah, okay, well, Jerusalem's the capital. Then the State Department doesn't recognize it. So it's all phony baloney, and and they were off script, which was the big story in this. This got out of hand, and they were unable to control it.
Well, and then there were all the spins about what happened here and whether it was an oversight or an accident, whether President Obama had approved the platform. That was shot down. Then we were told that he personally intervened to put God and Jerusalem back in.
Right, and if this had been a Republican convention, every reporter would have swarmed the platform committee. They would have swarmed the White House and said, now tell me tick-tock, exactly what day and what moment, when did the president know, and when did he know. Instead, again, ABC is the most astonishing on this. David Muir actually took Caroline Kennedy aside. She's not elected to anything. She's not. But they asked her. So, do you think that if Uncle Ted were here today, he'd be? What do you think he'd be? I mean, it was a leading question. Don't you think Ted Kennedy is really part of this convention after all? I missed. It was embarrassing what they use the journalistic resources for.
And I want to also maintain, had the convention's been switched around and this been at the beginning of, had the Democrat one gone first and was the beginning of the week, I think it would have gotten that attention. You also have to take a look at the tired factor. Reporters, you're so anxious to put so much onto the
They had all the energy they needed to interview Michelle Obama and Bill Clinton and Caroline Kennedy. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't want to do anything hard. They wanted to ask Michelle Obama, like, when Barack Obama gets off the stage, what do you say to him? What kind of punching question is that?
I agree with you on that one.
And then there was former President Bill Clinton, who spoke to the convention and earned himself front page coverage in the New York Times and probably a lot of other papers with his speech.
And some people I even saw on some of the conservative blogs that photo that you just showed was President Clinton purposely trying to hide President Obama's face.
I believe the gentleman next to you has that theory.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. This guy is a showman. He knows what he's doing. He could be in the theater. I mean, he's out there. He's doing 50 minutes with the president cooling his heels behind the curtain, and then he comes out and hugs him, and he puts his face. They do this in the movies. The big star gets the face.
Tried to do that.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen,
really.
we can agree that the coverage was a bit fawning, but there was also a consensus in the media, and I think it's correct, that the Democrats had a very, very good and strong convention.
But I do want to say this. Listen, I might have been maybe here too long or watching Newswatch for too long, but I have to tell you, so Monday night or Tuesday night I was exhausted, and I decided to go back to my hotel and watch the Michelle Obama speech. And so I saw George and whoever, that Diane Sawyer, I guess is her name. Yeah, right. Diane Sawyer on TV, and they were fawning over the speech. And I was really quite shocked.
Speaking of that, Rick Klein is the senior Washington editor for World News Tonight with Diane Sawyer. He tweeted, "This speech," meaning Clinton's speech, "was a living, breathing organism. The crowd, the hall, the speech won."
More like a living, breathing orgasm, if you'll excuse me. I mean, they were just crazy about. They were treating her like Princess Diana.
I think Judy, to my right here, just delivered a tautology. Said the media were fawning and the Democrats had a good convention. Those are the same statements. They're not separate.
No,
they're
not.
Look, Rachel Maddow, confronted, has to review the Michelle Obama speech. Oh, my God, was what she said. Well, that's a pretty good review.
Well, that was the president.
No,
he's God.
It was Michelle.
No, he's God. The wrong deity.
The Huffington Post called it the King's Speech. Next on News.